Have you ever felt like you and your partner are just speaking completely different languages? It's a super common challenge, right? But what if the key to finally connecting wasn't about trying to change each other, but about decoding who you've always been? Well, let's dive into a really fascinating story where the big breakthrough came from a place you'd never expect: Jungian, psychology, and a Halloween party.
All right, so let's meet Mike and Sally. Mike is a pastor, a really thoughtful guy who runs on logic. For him, the world is a series of complex problems that need to be solved step by step. Sally, on the other hand, is creative, spontaneous. She's all about deep inner values and finding that meaningful, empathetic connection. Yeah, you can probably already see where this is going, the potential for some serious fireworks.
So here's the big question. When a systematic thinker and an idealistic feeler just hit a total impasse, what do? Because those differences that once felt so attractive had started creating some real tension and disconnection for them and their family.
And I mean, this wasn't just a small disagreement. This was causing real damage. Mike's super logical way of doing things felt cold and kind of dismissive to Sally. And from his perspective, her focus on feelings and harmony just seemed impractical. They were completely stuck, and both of them felt deeply misunderstood by the one person they loved the most.
The big turning point for them came when their therapy took a totally new direction. It stopped being this endless debate about who was right or who was wrong in an argument. Instead, it became all about exploring how their brains were just wired differently. This was about understanding, not about blame.
So to get this new perspective, their therapist turned to a pretty classic psychological framework, one that's designed to map out the very different ways we all see and interact with the world.
They took the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is a personality assessment based on Carl Jung's theories. And the results? Wow, they were just stunningly clear. Mike was an ESTJ, that's extroverted, sensing, thinking, and judging. And Sally? She was an INFP, introverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving. In the language of this stuff, they were literal polar opposites.
So what is Jungian typology? You can kind of think of it like an operating system for your brain. The theory goes that we all have preferences for how we do two main things: how we take in information, either through concrete sensation or more abstract intuition, and how we make decisions, using objective thinking or subjective feeling. For Mike and Sally, their preferences were in direct conflict.
Now this is where things get really cool. Instead of just getting stuck on letters and labels, their therapists use these powerful, universal symbols, archetypes, to make their personality types come alive. So Mike, the extroverted thinker, is all about rational, objective, systematic problem solving. He builds systems, he delegates, he enforces the rules to get things done. And yeah, he can sometimes feel like his way is the only logical way. Who does that sound like? The ultimate strategist, the guy who brings order to chaos, Batman. And then you have Sally. Her main function is introverted feeling. She isn't driven by rules, she's driven by a deep inner compass of values. She's searching for harmony, for authenticity, for that truly meaningful connection. She's empathetic, creative, but can also be a little idealistic and maybe avoid conflict. Think of Belle from Beauty and the Beast, always looking for the heart of the matter, guided by what feels right.
And this quote right here, this just nails the whole strategy. By framing the conflict as Batman versus Belle, suddenly it wasn't Mike versus Sally anymore. It was a clash of worldviews, of fundamental operating systems, not a personal attack. It just took all the blame right out of the equation.
Okay, so now that they have this new language of archetypes, their therapist makes a suggestion. At first it was kind of a joke, but it ended up leading to their biggest breakthrough. All thanks to a very unconventional therapeutic experiment.
He said they should literally become their archetypes for a night. Go to a Halloween party dressed as Batman and Belle. And, to his surprise, they were totally into it. They loved the idea. They were ready to take this metaphor and make it real.
And this one single act, this one party, it let them walk through this incredible three-step process. First, it completely externalized the problem. It wasn't you versus me anymore. It was thinking versus feeling. Second, they got to playfully embrace these core parts of themselves. And finally, it just let them see each other in a totally new, more understanding, and honestly kind of funny way. It brought back that sense of connection, that flow.
You know, there's a real psychological power to doing something like this. By putting on the costumes, they weren't defending their personal point of view anymore. They were just playing a role. Mike could be the stoic, logical Batman without it being seen as an attack on Sally. And Sally could be the heartfelt, value-driven Belle without it being a criticism of Mike.
It became this fun, shared experience.
So what happened after the party was over and the costumes were put away? Well, this one little experiment had a huge, lasting impact. It fundamentally changed how they navigated their entire relationship and their family life.
Just look at this shift. Before, every single argument was this exhausting, personal battle. Why can't you be more logical? Why can't you just be more empathetic? After, their differences weren't a problem, they were just a dynamic to manage. It became about finding a way for Batman's strategy and Belle's values to actually work together.
And this is so important. The goal was never to turn Batman into Belle or Belle into Batman. Trying to force Mike to give up his logic or Sally to abandon her values would have been totally inauthentic. It just wouldn't work. No, the real breakthrough, the real solution was acceptance. It was about Mike finally appreciating the harmony and values that Belle brought to their family, and Sally finally understanding the need for the structure and planning that Batman provided. They learned to make space for each other's worlds, instead of constantly trying to invade them.
So this whole story leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. Whether it's Batman and Belle, or maybe the explorer and the nurturer, or the sage and the jester, what archetypes are at play in your own life? And could seeing them just a little more clearly be the key to a much deeper connection?